is what we are going to be working with today. We are going to do a very simple dialogue system for sort of tutorials or lore dumping. And that is going to look like this. So we run past, there's a brush past, it's got its own voice line and says different things, but also has its own actual soundtrack. And then if we wanted to, we can interact, and we've got next buttons, but it also runs through automatically as well, as you can see, and then changes dynamically. So full dynamic setup, you can put this on a post or on a vendor or on a character or anything you want really. It should be super easy, super simple setup. So let me know what you want next and we'll see what we can do. We're just in a blank third person project. We're going to create a new folder, so right click, we're going to call this dialogue. We're going to open that up and we're going to create two things. We're going to create a blueprint class of an actor component, call this BPC dialogue, and we're going to create a character BP NPC, and just in there we're going to add our BPC dialogue, and we're going to go to mesh and we're going to select SK Money and bring him down, and habit dictates that I rotate him round. And then the other thing, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to come back out, go to right click, blueprint interface. This is called blueprint interface of BPI interact. And we're just going to put one in there for interact. And we're going to add that in the class settings. Go to BPI interact. And then we need to open up BPC dialogue, and we're going to delete the two that are in there now. We're going to create a custom event called speak. We're going to go back to NPC, and where we have the interface, so about interact, just make sure you compile and save that. Go back to NPC and interact will be there, and then from BPC dialogue, just going to get speak, compile, save that, and then we can close NPC. And then in our third person character, we can get a button, so we can get press 1, and we can get a spear trace. So spear trace by channel, so we can get at to location, get at to location, and put that in start. So then we get at to rotation, then we get forward vector, just called forward vector. So get forward vector, and then we add those two together, and we times to get the distance forward that we need. Plug that into end, right click, and convert this to a float, and we can say that this is 100. Come to return value. From return value, we're going to get a branch. That's to say that if we hit something or not. From out hit, we're just going to break hit results, and then from break hit results, we're just going to get hit actor and call that interact message. And this is just a basic interaction system. It checks a certain distance in front of us, checks what we hit, makes sure that it's blocking the visibility channel. If we hit something, then it does something. If we don't hit anything, it doesn't do anything. And that hit actor that we do hit, it tries to call the interact function. And then that should be, there we go. We can see a little thing. As for our character, they are they blocking the visibility channel? So we'll go to NPC, go to mesh, check their collision settings. So they're not blocking visibility. So we can come down here to custom, change that to block visibility. And then there we go, we've got hello. Okay, so that's our basic interaction system. Now in dialogue, which is where we're going to do the meat and potatoes of what we need to do, we are going to make a variable. We're going to make this a text variable. We're going to make this the dialogue, and this needs to be a array. And then we need another variable, which can be a text variable, and that can just be single. And this will be speaker's name. Just compile those, and both of these need to be instance editable and expose on spawn, so that we can change them per person in the world. Now we're going to create a widget. So we're going to come back to our menu. We're going to right click, go to widget blueprint, use a widget. This will be WVP dialogue. And we're going to open that up. Get a canvas panel so that it's displayed, and get a, we'll need 2 borders. And one of them needs to be bigger than the other. And then we need a scroll box inside the border and text inside the scroll box. And text needs to fill all and needs to be a variable. And this will be our dialogue. And then we need more text inside the first box here. And this will be the speaker name, speaker's name. We can go to our border and we can go to content, color and opacity and brush. So content, color and opacity is fine because that'll be white. Brush, we can change the tint, and we can change the opacity to about 0.5. And we can do the same on the other border as well. Just make that one a little bit bigger. So this is where we'll display the speaker's name and also where we'll display the rest of the text as well. We're just going to get a button and add that in the bottom corner and some more text. And that's be the next button to move between our rows. And our text here will be our next / close text. And we'll make that a variable as well. Okay. And default on this, so we'll come down to content, will be next. Like that. Compile, click save. And then in the graph, we're going to need some variables as well. So we need the speaker will be text, and we'll duplicate that, and we need the dialogue to display, which will also be text, and that dialogue to display needs to be an array so we can get the full listing as well. Okay, so we need to get speaker, and then we need to get speaker's name. And we're going to set text And we're going to plug speaker into the in-text, and plug event construct into set text. We're going to then right click and get a custom event. And we're going to call that create dialogue. And then we're going to get the dialogue and the dialogue to display. And we are going to get a copy. And we're going to promote this green pin to a variable, which will be the current dialogue. Okay. So each of these arrays has a number assigned to it, and we're going to get a version of that at that time. So we're going to set text from dialogue and get a copy of that. So if this first one says hello, then it will say hello. Then afterwards it will increase and we'll go to the next one. We're going to get the current dialogue and get dialogue to display. We're going to get the length, and we're going to check if dialogue to display is greater or equal to current dialogue. So we're going to check what the value of current dialogue is, whether that is greater or equal to dialogue to display. So we can swap around a pin by pressing ctrl and grabbing the pin and moving it around. Then we're going to get a branch. And if it is greater than current dialogue, I'm going to get current dialogue and set it to 0. So it goes back to the start so we can have the same conversation all over again. And if it isn't, then we're going to get current dialogue and increment that. So ++ to move it on to the next one. And then we're going to call create dialogue once again. And that's going to loop through until it gets to the end in the next bit. Now we can make that happen automatically. So if we add a retriggerable delay between the ++ and create dialogue, we can say that if nothing happens in 5 seconds, then move to the next line. But if we want the next button, we can say on pressed, then we can call create dialogue. And what will happen is that will then run back through. And if it hits that retriggerable delay again, it will reset it. So it's not going to build up a backlog. Okay. So we now have a button that has next on it. But what happens when we get to the end of the row, we want it to say close. So just after create dialogue, we want a new branch. And we want to get dialogue to display, get its length, and -1, so subtract 1. So we want the last value -1. We want to get the current dialogue that we're on and check if that is more than or equal. And if it is, then we need to set the next button. We need to set the next button text, set text. And this needs to say close. So connect true to that, and then connect false to the normal set text. Like so. Now, back in our dialogue, we speak, then we are going to create widget. Create widget. We're going to select the dialogue, and we're going to add to viewport. So we're going to get controller, get player controller. We're going to set game mode. I'm going to set input mode UI only, connect the widget to focus, and then we're going to show mouse cursor, set show mouse cursor. We're going to tick that. And then we're going to come into our dialog screen, and we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to get player controller. We're going to set the mode. This time it will be game mode. And we're going to remove mouse cursor. So we're going to set show mouse cursor to not true. And then finally, we're going to remove from parent. Remove from parent. And that's going to remove self. So that's going to remove this widget. Okay. Now that's going to be on our delay, but if it's on our next key, so if we press the next button, we're just going to get this little check with the branch and copy it and paste it down here. So if it creates the dialog, if it's not that, then it creates a dialog, but if it is, then we're going to get all this and hit true. We'll come to speaker, we just need to make these instance editable and expose on spawn. And if we come to dialog to display, we need to do the same. And then back in BPC dialog, we'll just refresh this node, and then we can plug speaker's name into here and dialog into here. And now back in the world, we can set its NPC. We can come down to its dialog and we can say his name is Sam or Bob, and we can add dialog for him to say. So this will say hello, and then it will say nice to meet you. So if we play the game, we can interact with our dude. We can see that Bob has come up and our hello has not shown. So why did that not show? So the first part is correct, because from event construct we haven't called create dialog. So if we do that now, we can say from here, so we've got hello, nice to meet you, and then this will change to close. So that's our basic interaction system done, and we can then add this dialog to anything, a tree or anything at all. We can also do a system where we brush past someone and it starts to say things above their head. But just before that, let's add sounds. So we're going to add a new variable. We're going to call this dialog. We're going to call this greeting dialog. And again, we're going to make that instance editable and expose on spawn, and go to our dialog, press the plus button, and also add in sound. So greeting sound. This will also be a sound base. And we can have this be an array. So if we go back to our dialog, we can also change this to be an array, so that we can have multiples. And we can go back to our dialog widget and make it instance editable and expose on spawn. And then we can refresh it in our component. We can add that here. And then in our dialog, we need, when it's constructed, we're going to get the greeting sound, and we're going to get a copy. And then we're going to get the length, and we're going to random integer in range, and the max is going to be our green sound length. We need to remember to -1. That's how arrays count things. So we're going to -1 that. I'll put this get into a spawn sound 2D. We're going to get this return value and promote it and call this SFX. And then on our button press, just before this branch, I'm going to get SFX, right click it, turn it into a validated get. And if someone presses the button, we're going to stop audio. So we're going to call stop. Then we're going to go to true. And then we're going to go to branch. This bit is optional. So if you want to be able to skip audios and everything like that, then you can do it that way. So this sound will only play the first greeting that we set up, and then if it's already playing, it will stop it on someone's next, and it'll play a random one each time you say hello to the person. So that is all set up. Now I've used Audacity to get some sound waves. So we're just going to add some sound waves. I'm going to import them first. So import downloads. Is it downloads? So Audacity, there we go. So we've got these four.
G'day, mate.
And we're just going to add those. To that. So now when I play, it will say,
G'day, mate.
and it will close. So if you see, I managed to cut that one off by pressing it quickly. So that's a basic system that you can add, and each of these will say a different thing, and you can customize each of them here. So this will be Alex, and he can just tell me to go away, and I can get rid of his sounds so he doesn't have any sounds. Then we can press 1 and he tells me to go away. Super simple, super easy. But let's make it better. So we go to our NPC. Let's add a collision, a box collision, and let's also add a widget as well. We'll make the box collision a child of the widget, and then the widget needs to be quite far up, and the box needs to be just in front will do. We go to widget, we can scroll down till we find the user interface. We need to change this to screen, but then we need to make a new widget class. So we can duplicate this, call this WBP brush past, and we can go into there. We can remove the next button because we don't need that anymore. And so therefore we don't need any of this click stuff or this text setting stuff. So we can just remove that, and there it is, working perfectly. So we don't add it to the viewport, so we can remove that as well. And that is that bit done. Okay. Back in NPC, we can go back to our widget. From widget class, we can get a brush past widget. We can go to box, right click, and add an event. Begin overlap. We can check by equal, get player character, check it's equal to the player character, get a branch. we need to create an event in BPC dialog. So get this one, we're creating a custom event, call this brush past, create a widget, scroll this down to brush past widget, and we can use the same speaker's name, so that's fine. We're going to duplicate dialog and call it brush past dialog. So Ctrl D to duplicate, and we're going to duplicate the greetings dialog and call it brush past greeting, so that you can speak to the same, you can brush past the same person and speak to them, and you'll get different things that are being said. It has a quite nice thing to it. This return value, we're just going to promote to a variable. This is our brush past widget, and then we can get owner and get component by class. So we need the widget component, and we're going to set visibility, and we're going to set widget. The widget we're going to set is the brush past widget, and set visibility will be true because we don't want the widget to be visible all the time. So if we go back to our NPC, we can go to our widget, go to visibility, disable that, see, get BPC dialog, and go get brush past as a function and connect it here. And then when we load in, we get the text and the widget here above the head. And we can then go to widget, the designer for brush pass. We also don't need this to be a scroll box, so we can put the text inside the border, and we can sort of make this a bit more central. And here we can put it to be custom. We can make that 500 by 200, and we can just re-put everything where it should be. If we want to be clever, we can replace the canvas panel with an overlay. And then this border, you see, go to widget, 500 by 200. Draw it at the desired size. Try it one more time. And that works to a degree, but not for this. That's because he doesn't have any brush pass dialog. Yeah, there we go. So if we add some brush pass dialog to him, and we can say like this. And then we can see that it changes like that, but it's still displaying in the wrong way, which is not what we want. So let's go to designer. And we can say this border to have 50 on it like that. Then it should, there we go, display. And so we can then come down on the NPC, we can get the widget, go to our viewport and come down a little bit. Just make sure that this box is in front of. And we can see our widget. just there. Now, the main issue with this one is that it then doesn't disappear. So let's resolve that. So if we go back to BBC dialog, then we can go back to our brush pass widget, and in the graph, when it hits 0, we can call a event dispatcher on finished dialog, and when it hits 0, we can call that dispatcher here. We go back into our component. We can do a bind on dialog finished on finished dialog, and from event we can create a custom event. So we can create an event and create a matching event, and this will be called end brush past dialog, and we're going to get these two values and the get owner and get component by class. We're going to duplicate them, and we're going to set widget to be empty and set visibility to be none. And then right at the end, we're going to set brush pass widget to be none as well. Okay. And just for good measure, we're going to get brush pass widget, convert that to a validated get, and only do this if it's valid. So now we should be able to go in, and should have been able to come out, but we didn't set up the box end overlap event. So on component end overlap, we're just going to get the 3 checks at the top to check if we are checking if they're a player or not. And on end overlap, BBC, and then close. Let's say end brush pass dialog. And we'll wait for it to finish fully here so that we can see that it's stopped. There we go, it's stopped there. And then when we enter, we can leave. And it disappears as well. Okay, so now you have the option of having it as a brush pass, like that, or you can talk to them and get a different option as well. If you go into the brush pass and talk to them, that will trigger both dialogues and could cause problems, so we're just going to eliminate that. So at the top, we're going to get the brush pass widget and convert that to a validated get. So from in is valid, end brush pass dialog, and then we'll add the new one. If it's not valid, we can just do that. So if I then press 1, it gets rid of all the top ones. We can close that as well. Super basic dialog system that is perfect for tutorials or lore dumping, and how to use that system as like a walk past to say, come here, mate, as well. So whatever your use case is, then this is a good starting point.